Welcome. You're here to watch a video about hanging wallpaper, stroke a mural, feature wall wallpaper. Now, this isn't a short video, this is quite lengthy, but I do go in depth into the tips and tricks of getting the best results from a paper like this. I'm going to say to you, measure it correctly. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to say to you, get the right paste. I'm going to explain that. I'm going to show you how to do proper cuts, neat cuts, and this is all for free. You're not having to pay for a weekend course. You're not having to pay for a day course on wallpapering. If you can sit through this video and actually understand what I'm telling you, you will come away with a lot of information that I could probably put money on you won't get from elsewhere. So please stick with me. I know it is going to be a long video, but you will find a lot of information to help you get the best results on hanging something like this. So catch you in a second. So welcome to the channel, everybody. This is Phil Beck with the Professional Painter and Decorator, back with the final part of actually doing the room makeover. Hopefully you're coming off the back of the last video where I was just talking about the paint that I'd used on the walls, and now we're actually coming to the stage of hanging the mural wallpaper. Now I've got the brand, can you just see that? Wallism. I think you pronounce it Wallism, which is a Swedish company. They specialise in murals. They've got an organic synthetic mix of a non-woven paper. It makes it a stable product, i.e. once you've got it on the wall, it's not going to stretch, it's not going to expand, and I'm hoping it's not going to shrink as well. It shouldn't do, because it's one of these stable products. It's a paste the wall product. So when you say paste the wall, it's as easy as that. You paste the wall and you hang the paper to the wall. You don't have any soak times. It's a case of get the paste on and hang your paper. It's as simple as that. But I want to actually go, you know what I'm like, I can't make a 5-minute video, can I? I've got to do a video that tells you everything you need to know about hanging this sort of paper. Now, I will always say to you, read the instructions. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. If you can sit through my video of actually me explaining what you need to do, it gives you the insight of what I might come up against if there's a problem, or if you're a little bit unsure, you can actually see somebody like me actually hanging it and know whether you're doing it right or wrong. But right, where are we? I've got my wallpaper, and main thing is preparation of your surface. Now, on the previous videos, you saw that I prepared this wall and I actually put, I'll dip down, I actually put a lining paper on there to give me a sound, solid base, and that wallpaper lining paper was the Wall Rock Smooth. Again, this is a paste the wall product. It's a fibre lining product. I've got a piece here. And when you've got non-woven paste the wall papers, they are very much, if you can see, I'll rip a piece off so you can see it. There is all little fibres. Can you see that? Let's go into manual mode. There is little fibres in that lining paper. You can see, and if I rip it, you'll see them a little bit closer. But it means it's a strong paper that you cannot pull it apart. The only way you'll rip it is actually going like that. Back in focus. And it's the same principle really with the Wallism, can't even say it, Wallism, paste the wall, non-woven paper. It is a strong, structured paper to go on the surface. So that is one of the reasons I've actually lined the walls, to give a sound, solid base for putting this expensive wallpaper on. Price-wise, this wall, I'll show you when we get the camera back. This wall measured up just under 4 meters wide, and the height from the top of the skirting to the underside of that coving there was just 2.2 meters. So for that wall size area, for the paper that I've actually picked, came in just over £300. £300, yeah. It's not a cheap paper, but I'm doing one wall. It's a feature wall. You could be papering the whole room, needing 10 rolls, and it's, I don't know, £45 a roll. Yeah, that'd cost you 400-500 quid, wouldn't it? Yeah. This is only going to cost me about £300 to do one wall, and it's a feature wall. So let me give you the tips and tricks that you're going to need to do this sort of papering. Clearly we've lined it, and what I did before that, I made sure that the surface before lining was sound. So that wall, before we put the lining paper on, I put some primer sealer on it. It's the primer sealer from Beeline, which is that. It allowed me to fill up the surface, rub it down, put some primer sealer on it, and that gives me a sound sized base for putting the lining paper on, which I did. Now this was done a few days ago. It's all nice and dry and it's ready to go. What I did this morning before I went on camera, what I've done, I've just nibbed down the surface because there were a few little spots of paint from rolling the ceiling over that surface. So I've just made sure that we are all smooth and there is no bits on there. We are good to go. I'm going to be using the same paste as what I used for the lining, and it's the Albany Wallpaper adhesive tub paste, and this will do you, I would say, 99% of your wallpapering jobs, unless the wallpaper that you're doing is a specialist wallpaper that specifically specifies a certain paste for the paper. You will get away with using this tub paste, and you've got to make sure that the paste that you use is non-woven paste the wall Pacific, and this paste will do that. So what I'm going to do, right, let's just start. What tools do I need? I've got a hanging brush, I've got a smoother, you'll use both of those, I've got a pair of shears, I've got a ruler, I've got a pencil, I have a seam roller, got one of those, I've got a plumb bob, and just over there I've got a laser liner, which I will be using to show how good a laser liner is. And I've also got a straight edge for cutting and trimming the wallpaper at the top. Now, when you've got your blade, got a snap off blade, it's the Olfla with the black Olfla blades. When you've got your blades, make sure you've got a new sharp blade in your knife, because you don't want a blunt blade. So I'm going to move the camera around and we're just going to talk through how we actually set up for putting the wallpaper on. Right, first things first, if you're looking at putting one of these wallpapers on and you're thinking, how do I measure it up? I've got a tape measure as well as a boxwood ruler. What I would say to you is measure your height. Measure from the top there of your wall underneath the coving to the top of the skirting board, which is just down there. Measure that distance. Once you've got that distance, add 100 millimeters, 4 inches extra. Measure your actual width, the longest part of your wall as well. Measure it from the corner, go all the way to the other corner, and add 100 millimeters, 4 inches, because that will be your salvage, that will be your waste, because what you want is a bit of an overlap and you want to trim it back. You're not measuring to size. You are going to allow a little bit of a cushion so you can actually trim back. And I've allowed 2 inches this side and 2 inches that side. That is your total of 100 millimeters, i.e. 4 inches. And I've got exactly the same on the height. I've allowed a salvage waist of 2 inches at the top, and I've allowed a salvage waist of 2 inches at the bottom. So all in all, I will be cutting off roughly about 4 inches worth, 100 mil of paper. Yes, 2 inches at the top, 2 inches at the bottom. That also gives you tolerance if your ceiling is running out slightly, and it also gives you tolerance if your angles are running out slightly. So because you've measured up, you've got your height, you've got your width, and you've allowed 100 mil, 4 inches extra to that size of wallpaper, you can then order your wallpaper accordingly. You've allowed enough tolerance that if the angles or the ceiling are running out, you've got that little bit of a leeway to actually allow for that. So where am I going to be today? Right, I'm starting. This paper comes in a roll. I've got 9 lengths on this roll, and you'll see as you pull it off, your first length is marked at the top, 1 of 9. Now the 9th length will be printed according to the size of your wall. You might find you've only got part of print on an actual width of paper. Don't worry about that. Now, right, I have measured up this wall with my tolerance, and it is a 4.1 metre wall. So I've allowed 2 inches on this side. I'm not going to go 2 inches. I might just allow an inch overlap onto that wall there. All will become apparent in a moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm offering up this width of wallpaper, which comes in around about 490. I believe it's 490. 490 on the width. If you allow 490 on the width of the wall there, just come in, i.e. your 2 inches or an inch. Because I know that wall is pretty good, I'm going to go with an inch. So 490, let's bring that in an inch. So your 490 all of a sudden drops down to 465. And once you've got 465 on your wall, get your pencil. Your 490 was there, and you're coming in, I'm going to do an inch. So there's 25 mil, so I'm going at 465 is my measurement. And what I will do, I'll get a laser liner on that and mark it up. Or you can use a plumb bob if you've only got a plumb bob. Now you've got your laser liner or your plumb bob, make sure you've got a couple of marks on that laser line or plumb bob. 3 or 4 marks on that line, top to bottom. And that is where you will hang your wallpaper to once you start with your first length. You will paste just beyond that area there, just beyond the width of the first length, and hang your wallpaper to that size, allowing that overlap of just over an inch onto the wall just there. And for those of you that haven't got a laser liner, a plumb bob does the same sort of thing. I'll just check what I've got there. Am I on that? 465. Stop the plumb bob swinging. Line it all up. Yeah, that is spot on. So we know the laser liner works and we know the plumb bob works as well. So let's get some paste on the wall. So what we need to do now is actually get your Wallism paper and cut your first length off. Now, as you draw it off, you will see some cut lines. Pull it all the way off until you actually get, I'll just do it in my hand while I'm here, all the way down. All the way down until you actually see the next markings of the wallpaper. Can you see it just there? And that's where you will trim off. Now, where you see those cuts there, that is your bottom of your paper. So the next length that comes off that roll there will be the bottom of your paper and not the top. I will show you that on the next one. But for now, I'm going to cut across that dotted line there for the first length. For the purposes of the video, I've cut it just below that, just so we can see whereabouts. Can you see that? Whereabouts that line is. Now I'm going to roll that back again. I'm just going to roll it back up on itself. I have to say this paper feels very, very nice. It is quite a strong paper, so don't be frightened of actually manhandling it, woman handling it, person handling it. So I'm just rolling it up like that, just to protect the face. And that line there, I'm just going to show you something. Right, I'm just going to trim off. Trimming off that waste. Now this, can you see that? This is the top of the paper. Where you've got that mark there, that does not mean you hang that edge, i.e. there, to the top underneath the coving. A lot of people I see on the internet are seeing that edge there and thinking that's where you hang your bottom to the bottom of the coving. You don't. This will be pulled up by a couple of inches and there will be waste of the paper by 2 inches at the top that we will trim off. And that's what you need to do, because if your ceiling is running out, if you hung to that line there and it runs out the other side, you're going to have a gap showing. Yeah, you're going to have a gap showing. And this is why when you actually paint your ceiling, you come down onto the wall slightly to allow any tolerance. If you just cut it slightly wrong, I won't cut it wrong because I'm a professional, but that's why you bring your ceiling colour slightly onto your wall, just in case there's any undulation on that coving bottom edge. But I'll reiterate, you do not hang your paper to that line underneath your coving edge. You're pulling it up by a couple of inches because you've allowed that 50mm tolerance at the top and the bottom as waste salvage. Just like you've allowed a salvage edge to be wrapped around onto that wall just there. I've just allowed 25mm, not the full 50. Let's get some paste on. Now the paste, I'm using a medium power roller. You don't need to put it on the back of the paper. You're putting it onto your surface. You are pasting the wall. Now, when you get it on, cut in at the top with a brush. Roll your main wall area down the width of the paper. You could actually roll the maximum of about 3 widths, but for ease, I would say do one at a time. Do 1 width at a time, and then you know where you are. Now, cutting across the top, cutting down the side, fill in with your roller. This is a worn medium pile. Put plenty on and roll it out. You don't need to have loads of paste on the surface, but you don't want to roll it out that there's not enough on the surface. What you don't want to be doing is over soaking the surface with paste, because that means this paper will probably get too much paste on it that you don't need. This is a stable product, so it doesn't need lots of paste to actually hold it onto that surface. But make sure you've got enough on there that when you're rolling it out, you've got enough paste that you can actually move it and manipulate it into the areas that you want. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get it pasted and I will show you what it all looks like. Now, I hope you can see me. I've pasted that. There's not too much paste on the surface, but I've rolled it out so we've got a nice coveraged area of paste. Now, I've got the roll. I'm going to be hanging it to where that pencil mark is, and we'll try and talk you through it the best I can from this position. Now, don't forget, I'm going to be allowing a couple of inches overlap at the top. So we're not hanging it to that dotted line, we are bringing it up just a couple of inches. We're going to bring it down, matching up onto those pencil marks. Pencil mark there and there. Right. How much have I got at the top? Let's have a look. I'm going to drop that down now. I would say there's about 1.5 inches overlap at the top, which is fine. And if I come down to the bottom, I'm looking at the bottom. Let's just see what we'd have there. We've got 2.5 inches. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring it up 1/2 inch. Let's just have a check. Perfect. I've got 2 inches over the coving at the top, and I've got 2 inches at the bottom. All I need to do now is actually start lining it up on these pencil marks. There. Don't be frightened to pull it back off. And it's on. I have to say, this paper feels beautiful. It's got a lovely finish to it. Right, so we're on there. We've got to get it down now. And we've got an overlap there, which is what we want. So start with your squeegee, just get it down, top to bottom. Don't be moving it too much. And from the middle, start pressing it into the corner of your wall. Now my overlap there, let's just check. We should be just about 1 inch. It's 1.25 inches, so that's roughly about 30 millimeters. I'll start with the middle, getting it into the edge of the wall. I'm going to work my way up to the top. Right, when you come to the corner there, make sure you press it all the way in with your fingers till you get the corner. Once you feel that corner, get your knife with a sharp blade, and from that corner, get your pencil, put a little mark for that corner, pull it away, put your knife on the pencil mark and just draw it back. That will then make it drop in place, which it has done. Then use your spatula squeegee, get any air bubbles out and start coming down the wall all the way to the bottom. And then do exactly the same on the bottom corner. Push your fingers into the corner. Where the corner is, get your pencil, put a little pencil mark, then get your blade against that pencil mark and cut it back on an angle. So it allows you to get the sides and the base all into place. And then what I do, I pull it back and just cut across that corner to take some of that paper away and allow me to get into the corner even better. Now that's in place, I'm going to get my straight edge, which is a lot finer and neater than cutting with one of those, and I'm going to trim off the top by putting that underneath the coving and cutting across the face of that to trim it back. Put it underneath the coving, protect the paper that you're actually hanging, and cut straight across it neatly. Take your time, don't rush it. We'll come back and wipe any paste off in a moment. So you can see up there, I've cut neatly across there. There's some paste on there which I've got to wipe off. But now I'm coming down to the bottom and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to put, I'm going to squeegee it down first into that angle there, making sure there's paste all the way to it. And I'm going to now get the cutting blade straight edge across there and come across with my knife. That's just cut there, look. I couldn't do it holding the camera. Now I'm going to do exactly the same, top to bottom, with the straight edge and the blade on that overlap selvage there. So bear with me and we'll get that cut now. So I've just cut down that with the straight edge and a blade. It's all nicely cut in there. Don't take your blade off as you're cutting. Keep your blade in place all the time. As easy as that. Now all I'm going to do is get my bucket of warm water and just wipe down any excess paste off this surrounding woodwork and walls. And don't be frightened if you get a little bit of paste onto the wallpaper. You can actually, with a damp sponge, just wipe it off. So I'm going to do that all the way up and across the top. I'll see you in a moment. So that's the first length on, nicely cut at the top. We've kept on that plumb line, little marks all the way down, and I've just wiped over the edges where the paste might have oozed out. Now, good practice is get your then hanging brush, just easily wipe down, just in case you feel any air bubbles, or get your squeegee, just go back over it so you've not missed anywhere. Anywhere you've got any water, that will dry out because you've just wiped down. Don't worry about that. Right, let's have a look at the second length. Now, your second length will be hung exactly the same. This will be quite easy. Paste that section just beyond where your roll will be dropping. So I'll be pasting to there. But the thing you've got to be mindful of is, let's get this off the roll. So let's start pulling it off. And let's see whereabouts the cut is. You see what I'm doing? Just there. Now this is the top. You'll know it's the top because let me just cut it. You know it's the top because it will tell you length 2 of 9 and all your writing is the right way up. So once you've got that off, roll that back up again and then you can hang roll it back up again. I'm actually reverse rolling it just so I don't get any paste on the face that might be on my fingers. So that's good to go. I'm going to paste that and get it on. Now, a top tip from a professional, if you have pattern matching, if you've got a paper that's got pattern matching, don't be pattern matching it at the top that nobody sees it. Make sure you pattern match between about 5 feet and 6 feet, about there. Make sure the pattern matches at eye level. Top tip Tuesday. I'm going to get that pasted now. Let's get that hung and let's see what it looks like after I've cut it top and bottom. Right, we've got that second length on and you know what I'm like. I like to tell you what the pitfalls and what your problems are that you could have. Now, looking at the joint, can you see I've got it matching at eye level, right? Coming down here, it's all at eye level, but the paper is just starting to go off. Can you see that there? Now, I can't move that anywhere because I look at that and as a professional, I'd say there's a little bit of pattern trimming out on that because there is no way I would match that side to that side. Just look how that... I'm hoping you can see that all right. Like I say, there's no way that would match to that. It's just how the trimming is of the paper. Now, I'm just wiping carefully with a soft sponge and warm water. You don't want to over rub it because you don't want to polish the joint up, but you can just carefully wipe it down. Now, where you've got dark colours, I mean, that's a butt joint. Try and get them in across as far as you possibly can because the light colour of the lining paper underneath will show through. So I've just pushed that across a little bit more, got my seam roller and you just go over it and just seam roll it down. Don't be too worried if you've got it as far as you possibly can and it shows a little bit of white. That will be the edge of the paper. And you can't chalk the edges of this because there's too much colours in it. So that's carefully wiped down. You see there, look, my pattern runs out slightly, but we're now way below. We are way below eye level. Coming up to eye level there. Seam roll your edges down. And where you've got a dark, try and push them across so you know you've got them as far as you possibly can. Coming up to the top now, seam roller those down. Damp sponge, just wipe any paste off that might be across that coving and get it neat. And again, if those joints look like they're showing a little bit white, it would be more the case it is the edge of the paper than a gap between your papers. I'm happy. Right. That's what we're looking like so far. I'm going to carry on now, get all the way to the end, and we'll have a look at what it's like as a finished paper. The only things to be mindful of, we've got a socket we're going around there. If you look in the top corner, you will see how to wallpaper around a socket. I won't show you on this one. And you've also got tricky cuts around the door frame, but nothing too drastic. And then we come to a short piece there. Right, I will see you later on. This, if you were doing it yourself, I would say allow an hour to 2 hours to be on the safe side. I would do this in about an hour. I am a professional. Now we're doing quite well. We've coming to the last bits and pieces. Can you see it's stunning? This paper's stunning. I've thought I will show you how to actually cut round a socket. So we've got the socket at the back of the paper here. I've hung top to bottom, so the top is actually cut now and the socket is just there. Now I've loosened it off. We're in the UK, so we've got these sockets that you can't just take a faceplate off. This socket has been loosened off. It's still in position. The screws are still there. So I know where that socket's going to be. Now, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing on this. I'm going to show you what I do. I'm going to feel for the corners. There's a corner of the socket just there. I'm going to put my blade just on the paper where that corner is. I'm not pressing through. I'm going to pull away like that and just press in and make a little line. I'm going to find the bottom corner. Just put it against the corner with the blade, pull it away, and I'm going to do that with all 4 corners. I'm not using a pencil, and you're going to say, Phil, why aren't you using a pencil? The reason being, I'm a professional. And what I don't want to do is get a pencil mark on the paper and it smudges. Right, I've now got it there. Can you see I've got 4 cuts? I'm going to cut across the middle between those 2 and bring those cuts down to that middle cut. Can you see what I'm doing? So now I've got some flaps. Get my hand through. And that's where the socket will actually come through just there. Now, with your fingers, just carefully go around that socket and you'll get a little bit of a guide mark where the edge of that socket actually is. And you can just, I can just see it. I know that the edge of the socket is there. Now with my shears, I'm going to cut slightly inside of that mark, which is really inside of where those first corner cuts were. I'm going to show you again, just keeping a fraction from the edge. Same with the bottom, go across the bottom. You don't want to be cutting any further than where your initial star arrow cuts are, whatever you want to call it. I'm going across the top. So it means I've got like a letterbox flap. Can you see that? Now, carefully, I'm going to maneuver the paper around the socket. There's a little bit of play in the socket that I can just wiggle it about and get that paper at the back. There you go. Then across the bottom. Now, I've not taken the power off. I've taken a risk and a chance, but if you want to turn the power off, you can do. What you don't want to be doing is getting wet paper with paste on, touching any of the cables at the back, which shouldn't be too bad because we are actually paste the wall. And I've put enough paste around that edge that I can just push it through like that all the way. And that socket, when the paper's dry, that socket will be then screwed back in place and leveled up. Right, so let's just go around that socket now. Make sure we're all right on the joints on this side here. Let's just bring you up a little bit. Make sure your butt joints, get it across the bottom with your plastic smoother. Then with your metal straight edge, press it in, sharp blade. Don't take the blade off your cut. Keep it in place. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm only moving the straight edge. Make sure your straight edge lines up with the paper that's on the other side, and that's it. The reason you don't take your blade off, you'll start getting shark's fins. And a shark's fin is where you've got a cut where the blade goes off and on and it gives you the look of a shark's fin. Right, then carefully wipe around your socket with your soft sponge. Wipe any paste off around there, not that there should be, and just come down your joint carefully. Don't over rub it. Seam roller the edge down. If you need to just move it across slightly, you can do. Get it down. Damp sponge, just wipe off any excess that might be there. And that is how you do a plug socket. Right, my next length. Right, I'm going to show you how to cut around this door frame. It's a full drop of wallpaper and I've got it all the way down to the bottom, but I've not actually got the butt joint matching up just yet until I've got the pressure taken off the actual door frame edge just there. It'll all make sense when I show you. Right, I'm hanging at the top. We've got the 2-inch overlap there. We've come down and let's just show you what we've got to do. Right, you can see me. I'm actually matching up nicely at the top. I've got all my pattern in there. I know that the paper will match up nicely, so I'm just pulling it away. So I've got a little bit of movement, pulling it off the surface, and I can see there, I've pulled it flat, look. I'm coming up against the door frame edge. I know between the wall and the door frame, just there, is where I need to cut the paper. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the knife in my pocket, feel it with the finger. Where the wall meets the door frame edge, I'm just going to press the blade in, pull it away and come down on an angle. Can you see? And then across. The reason being I've done it like that, because this piece will go across the top of the door frame. And that will sit in nicely. I'll bring you in on the camera in a moment. Take the pressure off. Let's bring the camera in. Right, so we had it matching all there. We've released the pressure and we've cut against the door frame edge just there. That is, I'm going to say tight as nun's knickers on that edge just there, because we want to get that down. If I can do it one-handed, I will do. If not, the camera goes down. Let's get this top piece in place. Squeegeeing it up carefully. You can see I've got a little bit of a gap there, so push it across into place. The camera might have to go down. Press it all the way in. There's the excess coming down. There's the excess there. We know the top's on. We're not too worried about plumbing that part in now because we've only got a short little space. But if you were doing a full room, it might be worth just getting your laser to make sure that that is laser leveled for the next pieces going around it, or else you'll find it runs off after you've gone around a door and onto another wall. As I say, I'm not too worried. It's not a pant that's going to show, and I've only got that length there now. So I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to get all this down, take the excess. I'm going to actually cut that off, what I don't need, and make sure I've got a nice little piece that I can be trimming off in a few minutes. So let me go and do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Right, minutes. So what I've done, I've actually cut that excess off, which I didn't need. That allows me to get this piece all the way in neatly without working too much paper. Because if you've got a load of paper you've got to work with, it's very difficult. So I've already pre-cut these little corners down there, can you see? And there, gutting it down. I'm going to squeegee all the way up now, all the way down, get the paste in there. I'm going to come back up. Don't press too hard, but press enough that you can move your paste to the edge. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on these butt joints. I can feel with my fingers that they are butt, but I want to make sure that they're tight. So I'm just, with a bit of pressure of the hand, I'm pushing it into itself. You see that? I'm pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. I know that that is then in place. And you see the paste on there? That'll be wiped off in a moment. Get your damp sponge and wipe that off. But I want to make sure that all these edges, all into the angles, are all tight, and we're not going to be cutting it with butt joints that aren't butt. So I'm going to now trim the top, trim that piece there, and then trim down the side. And it is as simple as putting your straight edge against the frame and cutting with the blade, moving all the way down. Don't take your blade off the cut, or else that's where you'll get your shark's fins coming. You can move your straight edge off, but keep your blade in place. So let me do that. So there we've got it, that's all in. It's neatly cut using that sharp spatula stroke. Straight edge makes all the difference on getting a really neat cut against your frame. And also a sharp blade. So when you've got these, let me come round. When you've got these tricky corners like that, you've got to make sure you're into the corner with your blade and you've cut it neatly, which I have. And again, just check all your joints, wipe down. If there's any paste just oozed out, wipe it off. Right, nearly done. So let's get this last couple of pieces on and then we'll have a sum up. Right, just before we put that last piece on, the second to last is just a piece over the top. And you know what? You get the full length, because clearly Wallism didn't know that I've got to cut a door out. So you do get the full length of paper, which I've had to just trim at the top. Likewise and equally, because of the dimensions that I've actually given them for the wall, the last piece, the 9th length, is only part of a roll. So don't be surprised or frightened when you see that on your last length. They'll only give you enough printed paper for the amount of wall that you're actually papering. That doesn't matter, because I'm only needing I'm looking up there, I'm only needing a couple of inches. So I've actually measured right. I've given myself enough tolerance that if I did want to have given myself a couple of inches at the start, I could have done, but I didn't want to do that. I went with, what did I do? An inch. And then it's left me that at the end, which means I can cut that down to size and fill in that little piece up there. So that's what I'm going to do. See you in a minute. I'm just going to give you a minute to sit back and relax and look how good that wallpaper is. I'm well impressed with that wallpaper there. I'm actually going to say it's one of the nicest wallpapers that I've hung in a long time. Now, there's characteristics of this paper that has probably helped with the application of this. It is a non-woven wallpaper. Now, it's got a mix of the organic, I said earlier, organic and synthetic fibres in the paper, which make it that non-woven paste the wall. Now, the company and this manufacturing is FSC certified, so you're using a product that is, well, let's call it environmentally friendly. I'm going to say environmentally friendly if you can have wallpaper that's environmentally friendly. But it is also, the products that Wallism do, they are 100% PVC free. So there's none of that polyvinyl chloride in there. It's not a plasticky product. And I think you can tell once you handle that paper and get it on, it actually goes on really nicely. Now, I did say earlier, if you do get any paste on the surface, make sure you wipe it down with a warm sponge. Don't be scrubbing it. Don't be over polishing the joints when you come to the joints, because that is going to start making them look a little bit different to the rest of it. Just carefully wipe down any excess paste that might ooze out of one of the joints, and just make sure that you're careful with it. That's what I'm going to say. If you do get it stained, just be carefully with a damp sponge and just wipe anything off. Right, so I'm going to just give you some pointers. Now, I lined the wall beforehand, which gave me a really good surface to work on. And once I got it lined, I went round all the edges, top edge there of the wall, underneath the coving, down the side of the door frame, across the top of the skirting board. I went round with some decorator's cork. That was after I'd lined it and it was dry. Then I did all the painting, and then we could put the wallpaper on. Now, the reason I go around with that is because when I do my cuts underneath that coving there, down the side of the door frame, just there, top edge of the skirting, the blade, my sharp blade, goes nicely, I'm trying to get it out of my pocket, goes nicely into that cork. It's not going into a plaster surface, it's not going into a wood surface, it's actually going into something soft. And I find, and this is my tip as a professional, that corking round the edges makes a lot of difference when you're getting neat cuts around the edges. The straight edge, i.e. your spatula, stroke, metal, straight edge that goes into the corner to get your straight cuts, sits nicely on that cork, and it just cuts true. I'm going to say cuts true. Another thing I'm going to just mention to you is, if you do find your walls are slightly wavy and a little bit out, and you can't get your paper to meet up, because obviously non-woven paper doesn't allow for having much stretch to it, fear not, don't worry. Don't worry. If you've got some watercolour crayons, these are water soluble. I'll just get one out. These are water soluble crayons. Can you see that? Pencil crayons. Now, if I just wet my finger, can you see? It's water soluble. If you have some areas, particularly on the dark colours, that you might see an edge of wallpaper, if you've got something like this that you can match the colour, carefully just run it down the edge, wet it in and smudge it in, and you will lose a white line of a joint with some of this water soluble crayon. It's just from an artist shop. They're not very expensive. Pack of those probably about £10, but it does help you if you do find you've got joints, particularly on a dark colour like the green over in the corner. If anything is shown, you can use the pencil crayons, water soluble, and just blend it in to lose that edge. And that's what you can do if you have a problem with any edges showing like that. Obviously, this is a very fussy, busy paper. You're not going to see too much, but if you have got dark areas that are showing a light white edge of the joint of the paper, you can actually lose it. But all in all, that paper's gone on a dream. I'm very impressed with it. I'm going to say again, this isn't a sponsored video. It's not an endorsement from Phil Beckwith to a company that's given me any free paper. It's far from it. This is me purchasing this paper for my own living room. That's cost me just over £300 for that wall area, measuring 4.1 by 2.3, and that's what I bought in that size, allowing that 2 inches top and bottom, i.e. measuring an extra 100 millimeters more than I needed. And that has given me enough paper to allow for salvage top and bottom and sides. So yes, very impressed with it. Would I use this paper again? No problem whatsoever. I love the finish. I love that flatter matte finish. It's not shiny. It's not got any reflectiveness. If you've got lights on, it is a flat, lovely, non-woven wallpaper that is very impressive. And you know what? It's opposite my window, so hopefully everybody who walks down the pavement and down the street will see it and go, wow.